super excited to have all of you join. And as a quick reminder, the purpose of our Fireside Chats is to bring local industry professionals to share their experience and expertise with us. Quick reminder also, we will have a community session at the end of tonight's chat, so you can submit your Q&A in the box. Now, what I want to do next is introduce our guest speaker, Sarah Zubiate, and she's the founder, owner, and chief executive officer of Zubiate. Zubiate is a consumer product snack food company started in 2017. In just 4 years, Zubiate has expanded its offering to include plant-based, organic certified crema and queso, along with her first product, salsa. And if you check out our story page on their website, it's Sarah's Salsa. You can find Zubiate online at eatzubi.com, EATZUBI.com. It's a great website, easy to navigate. And also, I was able to purchase the sample pack in under 1 minute. Sarah leads the day-to-day operations at Zubiate, where her role consists of overseeing business development, financial strategy, and marketing strategy, as well as manufacturing and production. In 2020, Zubiate brought all their manufacturing and production in-house with the construction of Zubi Farms, a zero-waste, organic certified, sustainable facility in Athens, Texas. For those of you who are curious where Athens, Texas is, it's about 3 hours north and a bit east of us from Austin. Basically, if you know where Hillsborough is on 35, you're on your way. It's on your way to Dallas and Fort Worth, and you can get there by going through Hillsborough and then east to Corsicana to Athens. Zubiate's products are sold in retail stores across 31 states. How about that, guys? Including Texas-based locations of Costco, Whole Foods, Central Market, and Amazon. Previous to Zubiate, she served as the Director of Financial Development for the Dallas Metropolitan YMCA from 2015 to 2017. Before that, the Vice President of Trinity Fiduciary Partners. And last but not least, before that, for Charles Schwab for 3.5 years. So quite a resume for our guest speaker. Now, what I would like to do next is turn it over to our Dean, Louise Single, Interim Dean of the Business School and accounting professor, who will be moderating the Fireside Chat this evening. Dean.
Thank you, Ken. And thank you, Sarah, so much for joining us tonight to speak to our students. I want to welcome our audience, our faculty, staff, and students who are listening in. And we're really excited to have this opportunity to hear about Sarah's journey from St. Edward's, because something that wasn't in the official bio is that she's an alum of the Monday School of Business, and she graduated with a degree in finance and marketing and a minor in math. Is that right? Yeah. So, and now she is in the food retail business. So quite a journey since she was at St. Edward's. So Sarah, I wonder if you could start by telling us a little bit about who Sarah Zubiate was as a student.
Yes, absolutely. First, thank you so much for having me on here. And it's so nice to see Lorelei. Hi, I'm so glad that I'm part of this. And for everyone here, please feel free to ask any types of questions that you have. I'm pretty much an open book, really easy to talk to. And I'm very proud to be able to assist in this capacity. And I'd love to eventually do this in person. But to answer your question, Dean, so who I was when I attended school. So I'm originally from El Paso, Texas, and Juarez, the border there. I'm from the Lower Valley side, so from kind of a lower income community, if you will. So in attending St. Ed's, it was a true culture shock. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, there's people here that, you know, come from this opportunity and their parents do this, and oh my goodness. So it was wonderful because I thought that my eyes were just wide open for the first time, even though I was an avid reader as a child. But at St. Ed's, I was extremely involved. I kind of plunged in as quickly as I could. I was, and like, just like was mentioned, yes, I majored in finance, marketing, minored in mathematics, and graduated with honors. And so I was studious, but I was a big networker. So back then, the only type of fraternity was Delta Sigma Pi. And so I was certainly active and involved there. And I was also a professor's assistant for Dr. Polis. I think he might have been before many of your time, but he was fantastic. And I nurtured a lot of the relationships with the persons that he brought to speak and lecture at many of the business classes that I took with him. And to this day, he's still a good friend, as is Dr. Carter, Les Carter. We email a few times a year. So that was me as a student. I was hungry, I was thirsty for learning and knowledge, and just meeting people from all backgrounds. And strangely enough, now there's this entire networking buzz. And back then I didn't necessarily see it as such. I just wanted to be everyone's friends. I was very inquisitive. I just placed myself in as many situations as I possibly could. And I loved learning from everyone's differences. And because I was somewhat uncomfortable, maybe the first 3 months, and I cried and cried when I left my parents. My mother was diagnosed with Parkinson's, which is why I didn't go out of state. I had, I guess, the opportunity to attend some rather prestigious universities, but I let those opportunities go. And so for me, I thought, well, St. Edward's is so beautiful. It feels like a home community. It's what I need. The people are kind and respectful. And Dr. Pluta, he's actually the one that gave me the campus tour as I applied to St. Ed's. He was just unbelievable in kind of selling that particular aspect, which I found to be particularly true of not just the faculty, but the students, just the home and community feeling, which is an environment where I thrive. And I didn't necessarily understand exactly how much that would help me thrive. But in knowing who I am now, yes, it's crucial and fundamental to my character. So that answers, I guess, who I was and am still, but that was me when I stepped on campus.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I think you've touched on a lot of things that make St. Edward's what brought all of us here and keep us here, especially that sense of community. And so even though the three former colleagues of mine that you mentioned, because I did overlap with all three of them, have retired, we have new faculty who I think would be just as gracious and
Of
showing
course.
students around and making you feel welcome. So bring us now forward to your company. Can you tell us more about Zubies and kind of about the mission of your company?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, so kind of hopping from university and kind of applying to the financial services and finance industry, I loved it. And it was financially lucrative, thank goodness. I got all my licenses and eventually worked myself up to a fixed income trader. I left there ranked number one in that particular division, which was insanely hard.
Mhm.
And again, like I said, I thrive in communities, tight-knit communities. And even though I can be a little bit of a bull, what I need to be, it's not who I am fundamentally. So in leaving finance, I thought, the two things that I want to do eventually with my life is start a business. I want it to be in some type of industry that brings people together. And it's so cliche. So sometimes it drives me crazy when I read it on paper because I'm like, oh God, bringing people together through food. But once people meet me, once they know my story, it's, I think, a little bit different. So reason being, so I was given up for adoption at birth. I didn't know it, but like I said, I didn't necessarily have a very lavish upbringing. It was humble at its finest. My birth mother couldn't afford to keep me, so she gave me up for adoption. And in being given up, I was, as many people know, I mean, Latina and Latino people everywhere we live our lives around food. It's kind of what we do. But in meeting my biological mother when I was 19, and my parents, especially when I found out I was adopted, said, she worked as a maid for them and basically couldn't afford to keep me. And they said, never was our house cleaner and never was the food as delicious as it was when she worked for us. So she and I bonded in the kitchen, Connie, my birth mother.
Oh,
And it's just beautiful, because those memories are kind of what built me. And I was at St. Ed's whenever I met her. So it was just a fundamental shift of who I was. And so I thought, okay, this is who I've always been, a person who enjoys experimenting and cooking, and I mean, quite fancy dishes, but I've loved it. So in meeting her and knowing clearly the kind of staples that we ate, not just in the family I was raised in, but in my biological family and kind of everywhere I go now, whether it's Europe, Egypt, I mean, wherever you are, there's always some type of Latin influence, believe it or not. So in starting the company, Zubi's, and the fundamental and the base of it is bringing people together through food. It doesn't matter your, whatever preference you have religiously, your color, your, your socioeconomic status, the food is really intended to be food that all people love. My parents are 80 and 81 now, and they don't care if anything's healthy. They just want it to taste good. So in looking to create products to swap out at their table, it just had to taste good. They don't care that it's good for them. But I said, listen, to just cut out some of the dairy you're eating, try this queso. Okay, so they loved it. And then same with the crema, to substitute out the old sour cream base crema. It was jalapeno based, some organic safflower oil. So emulsification kind of is the process as its core. So they loved it. And I thought, okay, well, I'm onto something. So I started selling at the farmers market in 2013. And then I had to go back and do the capital formation, capital development, fundraising work to help build the Rise School of Dallas here in Highland Park, kind of in the Dallas area, because I needed the funds at that point because I was going through a divorce. But in doing that, it kind of brought even more beauty into my life. But then I got to a point where I sold my products into retail, and it was at the point where I was able to generate enough revenue to sustain myself, my income, and the kids. So I have twins who are now 8, but that's it. And from that point forward, it has not been easy, but it's been amazing. I wake up and I need change. I thrive in fast-paced, exciting, challenging, problem-solving capacities. And that's very much what this brings me. I don't get bored ever.
So what would you say has been the biggest challenge that you faced at building the company so far?
I relied heavily on my ability to model and forecast fairly well and crunch numbers and do strategic analysis from kind of my financial sector days. And I was vice president for proprietary enhanced mutual funds. So then I kind of oversaw the investment selections for a bunch of these mutual funds, kind of on the institutional side. So I thought, I can do this. I've researched enough. Oh my gosh, when you don't have a background in something, I don't care how smart someone is, experience is everything, people, everything. And so that was probably my one issue at the onset. And I'm so frustrated to say that now because I'm so good at making connections. But I did not, at that point in my life, have the time that I did in undergrad or business school when I was younger without kids to go invest in new relationships with people in the food industry. I just didn't. So I researched a lot. So whenever I started the company and whenever you kind of grow to a particular point, so at first you can kind of start off for a farmer's market in a commissary kitchen, which is great. And then I tried to develop different products that people either loved or they disliked. And so I ran with the ones that people enjoyed most. So that was kind of a good litmus test, but lots of people start at the farmers markets. Mm-hmm. So the bear that retail world is what I was not prepared for. So when I say that, so, okay, my accounts, Whole Foods or Central Market, let's just use Central Market as an example. My competitors, while I did competitor analysis and industry research, I didn't stop to think, oh, this company has been around for 22 years, even though they're a family-owned mom and pop shop. So their capital preservation, just their capital on hand, right? Their cash on hand, cash is king. They will be able to promote their products for 1 year for $2 off and probably sell me out. Just place me, just kick me right off that shelf. I never knew that. I never knew that that was a strategy that these sweet mom and pop places were going to employ. So that was tough. That's a whole other thing. You can ask if you want me to delve in there. But then an additional thing was my co-packer. So you go from making these products yourself to in a smaller kitchen. And then it gets to a point where you have to start making them in relatively larger batches. In my case, they're kettles. And for me, because 2 of my products are primarily oil-based, I would preach to my co-packer about the fact that surface area was everything. So I wanted everything manufactured in a 300-gallon kettle, not a 600-gallon kettle, because it would burn my product. But in them needing to manage their production schedule in the most profitable manner, they burnt my product and damaged it left and right. So the legal clauses that I actually did fairly well at for not having a law degree. I mean, it was just horrible how much I had to eat early on, but I did have the revenue to kind of fill those pockets, but they eventually wound up going out of business. They went bankrupt, that co-packer. So at that point in time, I did have kind of, at this point in my life, I have some property out in East Texas, and now that's where my headquarters are. And when they went belly up, there was not another co-packer locally. There was one in Austin, but for whatever reason, we couldn't agree on a price point that I needed, or else I'd go out of business if I had to sell my products for a loss, because the co-packer that went belly up, they were making my product, every batch was made at a loss. So they were not aware of that. And they were huge, 100,000 square foot facility. I mean, every license, every food industry certification, you'd think that they'd had a little bit more sense than that. They did not. So I thought, all right, well, now is the time. I'm going to build my own facility. I'm going to piece together the manufacturing. I'm going to run it myself. I'm going to learn what it takes. And they've made so many mistakes, and I've been correcting or trying to suggest corrections for so long. I think I might be able to do it. So I did it. And then in trying to find people, my suppliers for my ingredients, and because they were making everything at a loss, I had to totally change the model. So then I thought, all right, I'm going to start growing a lot of this. I'm going to start an organic farm, which means, I mean, it's small, it's 5.5 to 6 acres. And so I'm now a farmer. But I'm telling you, entrepreneur life is not easy. And, by now I thought I'd have my PhD and, envision my life so much different. But I mean, this startup has just taught me so much, and I would do nothing differently. It's been a fantastic opportunity. And now, after I've taken it under my own helm, and now I run manufacture, I don't run it anymore, but I've hired someone to run my manufacturing for me. I have a whole team there, farming team. That vertical integration saves me a ton of money. And now I work with great distributors. People love the product quality, and yeah, we're growing, we're booming. So I can't complain. But again, it's all of those lessons that I really wish I would have known from the School of Hard Knocks, or even having a mentor, but in the food industry. So that's it in a nutshell.
Well, yeah, I mean, lifelong learning, that's what it's all about, right?
Amen.
And it certainly sounds like you had to learn a lot. I can't even imagine just knowing that you needed the 300 gallon size instead of 600. I mean, how did you figure that out? Were you doing your own research?
Yeah, absolutely. I developed every recipe. And so I would tell them, this is science. This is emulsification. It's a pretty, I mean, it is difficult because the water and oil is difficult, right? Oil and water, the separation. And then even though the organic safflower oil, I've specifically picked it because of the low, anyhow, yes, it's science. And they had a PhD on staff who worked for Coca-Cola, and he kept insisting that it could be done. And I said, well, it can be done if you all have an agitator at the bottom of your kettle, something to kind of turn the basin in this slow movement, which they didn't. And so anyhow, it was just yeah, I mean, I had to learn. I mean, at least I had to help them problem solve, because I thought, well, they're not going to do it. I'm a growing brand. They're making food for, these large companies. They're not going to invest the time in learning how to solve this. So I had to, I guess, which paid off in the long run.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the other things in reading, doing some background research before tonight,
Yes.
I could see that social media marketing is really huge for you, I think. And we do have in our marketing department, a huge focus now, of course, on digital media, social media marketing, and marketing analytics.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to see if you could share with the students your thoughts on what are some of the ways that you learned to integrate that and use it to your advantage, and what things would you advise them to try to learn while they're still in school about those tools?
Yeah. It's a big question, only because when I was there studying, and as you know, one of my majors was marketing.
Mhm.
And I mean, Facebook was just getting started, right? And whenever I went up and gave my investment presentation, I sold the classroom on Google in Dr. Carter's class. And people were like, shooting it down. And I said, you guys. So anyhow, the mathematics component in that presentation and just talking about what could be is so different from what it is now, right?
Mhm.
And so for everyone who's there now, I've taken so many online courses, and I have so many, Google certifications, because I had to learn this stuff. And I am horrible. Okay, not horrible, but I don't like social media, in that it's exhausting for me. I know so many people enjoy it. They love posting their lives. They enjoy taking photos everywhere they are. I forget, because I'm so much in the moment with people, that I forget to take a photo or whatever I'm supposed to be doing. So, if I were you all at this point, and I'm sure you're probably even able to get a lot of your certifications, Google certification, whatever it might be, Shopify certifications, I'm not sure what the majority of you are wanting to do in your life or lives, but it's fundamental to the success of any industry. My husband is a hotelier, and even with as different as his industry is, it's certainly now dependent on it in so many ways for the, every hotel in every state or whatever city, it's necessary. So the marketing integration with social media, Google, Facebook, Instagram, now TikTok, it's crazy. And I don't have the time to be on there managing this particular component of the business. So in knowing that I didn't particularly enjoy it, but needed it, I had to very quickly develop a fundamental understanding of how the algorithms work, even though I know they're changing every second, every day, based on data that's fed to them. And that's on every platform. I had to make sure that my team that I hired was someone who was able to to help me in that respect. I'm very sound when it comes to Excel modeling, managing, creativity, strategic analysis, things of that sort, even sales. But first, I had to figure out for my company, okay, what are my largest revenue drivers? For me, it's brick and mortar. That's the store that you actually walk into that's built with like a box, right? Your Whole Foods, whatever, your Costco.
Right.
That's still my number one revenue driver. But I had to totally shift the way that I perceived that particular portion of my company when COVID came, because I thought, well, no one's going in. No, everyone's looking for the fundamentals of what they need in their households. They're not in exploratory mindsets at this point. They're in hunker down, bunker down, however people were looking for healthy for you options. So I had to then say, okay, I'm going to have to invest the same amount, because it is expensive to sell in a retailer. Oh my God. Because your costs are so layered. Not only is it the ingredients and the people that you have to pay to make it, it's the distributor. So the people who take your product to one large warehouse and then take it to the different warehouses across the country. So they take a fee. And then on top of that, you might have a broker who puts another 3% on top of it. And this industry is a pretty low margin industry. So being razor thin on that respect, I thought, you know what? To hell with it. I am going to treat my Shopify store just as it was my brick and mortar retailer. I'm going to start investing in aggressive Facebook marketing, Instagram campaigns, hire someone to eventually start my TikTok, which I actually just hired. So that's brand new for us. And all of these different components are crucial. And so now my Shopify store is rocking it because I am a multi-million-dollar company at this point. I can't even imagine just saying it because I'm still a startup, but that's exciting. That's exciting to be able to say because, and even now, because my margins are so thin, becoming profitable while you're dumping so much money into these ads, I mean, it's tough, but it's constantly staying on top of those numbers and hiring people that you know love it. Love it. And that might be many of you, which is amazing. And so, and I rely heavily on my intern team. So, you know, some local high schools like Ursuline or Jesuit or even Cornell, they had some of the two people from their food science division who were from Dallas. They actually studied under my production supervisor to learn kind of the logistics on the science side and the food development side, because I'm launching spiced jalapeno and agave pecan for the holiday season. And yeah, so I mean, I could spend way too long on this, but it's still something that I think is crucial. It's fundamental to anyone's success. Doctors, whomever, we need it. We rely and depend. And then Amazon, I didn't even touch on that. It's a whole other monster, but yep.
Yeah.
That's, I can just talk. Just tell me to be quiet whenever I just ramble.
That's what you're here for. Well, and I think, so good news, it sounds like because it's everywhere, students that are in those majors, lots of jobs out there for you. And so internships too, that's something that we really emphasize.
Yes, I interned. Oh my gosh. But again, I wanted to pursue the financial route, the financial services or finance route. So I interned at Raymond James and Associates. That was not a paid internship, but I was like, I don't care. I just want the work. I want the experience. I want the people. I want it, right? I just wanted to get out there. So that was amazing because they just wanted me on board initially, kind of helping with presentations. But I'd always say, can I just go sit in a meeting? I'll be quiet. I'll sit there and can I just scribe? So I just would ask, I just push and push and push. But they eventually started paying me. So I did that first summer and then they paid me the second year. And I thought, okay, well, that's good. So it was me and two other people from UT, their business program there. And it was fantastic. So I urge and implore each of you to absolutely intern, definitely. And I mean, don't stop. If you can't get in, then show up at the office. I'm not even kidding, because everyone's behind an email at this point. I have so many emails in my inbox from people who, want to sell me something, who they want to supply me with running my ads. They want to, whatever it might be, looking for work, right? In this work environment, which is tough. And just initiative. I mean, it's kind of hard, I guess, to get onto my private farm, but anyhow, just people who send a resume with a video attached, right? Like it'll have their resume embedded in a hyperlink, quick presentation resume with their with themselves speaking in the lower corner. I mean, when you think, oh my God, there's a face, there's more to it. And I guess back to the human component, that's why social media does so well, because people want to feel that touch point. And so now I am investing a heck of a lot more money as of July, very recently, in my online marketing and sales campaigns, and it's paying off already.
So let me take you back to something you said early on about the fact that you've always been a networker. How have you capitalized on your network, or how do you build your network?
I guess I just don't meet strangers, right? That thankfully that is a fundamental characteristic of mine. But someone who's a little shyer, I think, might even benefit from learning the types of open-ended questions that parents ask their kids. That's something really important, because open-ended questions will really get a conversation going. So I know that's not answering your question, but that is very helpful in getting to know people. And you have to practice at it. And the way I've capitalized on it, so I didn't really even realize that I was doing it, again, because it is something that's innate, but it's something that can be learned, which is something that I really want to encourage all of you to be mindful of. Because again, and it wasn't until I realized that so many people could learn it, because I actually started teaching some people. I had a small group of people from SMU here, a professor, I don't know how they got a hold of me. Oh yes, that's how, I'll fill that in a minute. Either way, a professor got in touch with me because she heard me speak. And she said, can I just pay you a few $100s to sit with a group of my students? And so I did this frequently, because that was a great opportunity. And I sat and taught them how to ask open-ended questions and how to literally build a pipeline. In my Google Calendar and my contacts, so I promise I'm going somewhere with this. I'm not deflecting in any way, shape, or form. But in any of my contacts, I make sure that in that notes section, I write a few characteristics and qualities that I learn about a person. And I don't care if it's someone just coming to interview with me or someone who's helping clean my house, because it helps build relationships. I mean, it really does. So, I mean, even my own, my own V card, I sit, and anything that I share with people, it has multiple ways that they can reach me. And then I have a more professional one that's a little bit more cut down. So and it's a lot of work, but even just giving yourself a voice note, right? Whenever you meet someone, voice note, XYZ person, this company, this seems like their interest, follow up by looking them up on LinkedIn, and maybe even sending a letter, whatever you might want to do. And it's even great to do with like your student friends. I was able to meet, Delta Sigma Pi. So let me just tell this story, because this is to answer your question, and then I'll skip over to the SMU professor in a second. But a gal who was in Delta Sigma Pi with me, you know, she kind of like me was from kind of humble beginnings. So she worked as a cashier when she was at St. Ed's at HEB. And she was, I think, 3 years older than me, but oh my gosh, I just loved her. And yeah, so she became is one of my dear friends. Her name's Rebecca. And I got to know her very well in Delta Sigma Pi, but I always thought, God, she just has an amazing heart. And as crazy as it is, really make the time to meet people and talk to people who have good hearts, because we're the type of people who will open doors for you. It just kind of is what it is. And Rebecca is very much that person. So fast forward to us keeping in touch, whatever, 2016, she's at HEB in the corporate over HR. She worked her way up fast. And she was like, you know what? The buyer loved your stuff. I brought it in. Can I make this introduction? I was like, oh my God, can you make this introduction? So it's strange, but keeping in touch with people it takes time. It takes a lot of time. And, you know, another person at this point in their lives, I mean, another version of me, if I was a little bit more introverted, perhaps, I mean, I would have gone back to school versus just getting a bunch of licenses and certifications to fill in my knowledge gaps, probably, but people investment is crucial. And so whenever I was doing the capital formation fundraising, and again, I just did that because I wanted to do something that allowed me to be with my kids, and that was family focused. And I love Down syndrome, and it was building a school for kids with Down syndrome here in Highland Park. So I had to present to several people to get that school named for $2.5 million. I had to go present to a few publicly traded company boards. After I resigned from that position and I sold my products into retail, they were looking for an independent, a minority woman to be an independent director. I was in my 30s and I was vetted for a publicly traded company board, and I was a director on a publicly traded company board in my 30s. And because a lot of those directors that I went and pitched to, I made sure that I stayed afterwards. I handed my card out to every single one of them in whatever it was that I presented. And I asked them if they would please follow up with me. I'd love to take them to coffee. I'd love to either, take them to happy hour. And I didn't even ask if I could do that. I just gave my presentation and then went and sat outside the room. And I did, and several people took me up on that. And that is how I got to be friendly with a lot of these independent directors, and not because I wanted a board seat. Oh my God, are you kidding? I wanted to do that when I was 60, right? Not in my 30s, but it's incredible. Just how making that initiative and kind of putting yourself in that uncomfortable situation. And I'm that annoying person at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day. Now I say, okay, how did I make myself uncomfortable today? I don't care what it is. If I run like if I have a 3-second improvement on whatever mile I'm running or whatever it might be, I just want to make myself feel discomfort every day in a healthy, challenging way, of course. But so that kind of touched on a whole bunch of things. And it was from that independent director advisory position where I presented to some people that the professor reached out to me from SMU. So it's been really great. And I've told, a bunch of these professors, hey, I'm still a startup. I'm going to be a startup for a long time. And, if your kids or your students want me to speak with them or do whatever, I'm happy to do that. But it's gotten to the point now where I can't as much. So they'll just come intern. And I haven't paid interns this year. I did used to at like $10 an hour. And hopefully this 2022 summer I can pay, but it's a tough environment right now. But so yes, that's the human capital investment piece that I think is crucial for anyone. Yeah.
Well, I love that. I mean, thinking back to what you said about just talking into your phone with little notes about people you just met, the students live with their phones in their hands. So I think that would be
Make it
something to think about.
useful.
Right. And
That's
that
right.
idea of open-ended questions and
Yes.
to start conversations. And yeah, that's great. I heard Dr. Polos in there because I can still, he was always telling his students to email so-and-so and ask him to have coffee. Just go buy him coffee.
Oh, and I would.
Yeah.
I would. And I'm not kidding. I think I was one of like 2 students because I wanted to learn, right?
Mhm.
It's that kind of constant yearning to learn. And even if you just have coffee with someone, you can learn something. And even if no one here wants to go into the food industry, you can learn, right? It's kind of applicable to all industries.
Mhm. Absolutely. That's why we do the fireside chats, because no matter what area of business our speakers are in, there are things that all of our students can take away from the
Totally.
conversations.
Yes.
So let me, before we move to student questions, just sort of wrap up with one final question for you. And so as I'm sure you know, as an alum and from your time in all the classes that you took here, ethics are a huge part of our mission and what we try to impart to our students.
Mhm.
So what advice would you give the students in terms of thinking about ethics as they launch into their career path and the importance of ethics?
Yeah, ethics is everything. And without adhering to those ethics, you'll probably wind up like my old co-packer. But not even ethics as far as that business wise. It's just fundamental human code ethics, right? I think that is so lost on so many people now. And I think it's also important for people to spend time journaling, having quiet time, and trying to figure out what ethics are to you, what they mean to you. Because something that meant something to me 10 years ago is entirely different now, as it's an entirely different application in terms of my fundamentals. But the ethical line on so many things, you're towing some strange ground these days. And I think it's important to really have a solid lock on who and what your ethics are as a person first, before you move into business ethics. Because when you spend that time and investment on yourself, it can certainly translate to a lot more fruitful endeavors and a lot more success on the business side, because it certainly overlaps, right? It's a crazy world out there. And I remember just being so bright-eyed and bushy-tailed whenever I first came into this industry, and then working in a particular part of the finance sector, I thought, oh my God, this is not for me. They are blurring the lines. They're blurring the freaking lines. And I was in a position where I would actually benefit from that blurring of the lines. It was about 2 months after that when I left, and I was ranked number 1. And it was either me knowing that my ranking would do this, or it could probably continue to do this if I adhered to kind of this whole other scenario. And I thought, it's not for me.
Mhm.
And now it's actually been weeded out a really good deal in that particular industry, because there's so much more intelligence on the computing side, and traders will probably be extinct in that industry will probably be totally wiped out in about 15 years, probably 10 years. But anyhow, the lines get blurred very quickly. And that was actually part of why I wanted to run my own company. But even when you run your own company, you run into people on this side where you think, this is unethical. This is not okay. And as much as you beat against it, you're going to find yourself somewhat beholden to them because you need them, yet you have to make sure that your paper trail is always covered. Just in case someone gets into legal trouble and you're a business that does business with them, your ethics need to be flawlessly maintained in a paper trail. It's just crucial. Or, you know, that could wind up on your plate, that mess, unfortunately. So yeah, I know I kind of jumped on a whole bunch of different topics, but still ethics it's everything.
Yeah. No, and I think the idea that you talked about understanding who you are at your core and what's, you know, right to you, and thinking
it's
about
hard.
that before
Oh.
you jump out into the real world where it's just coming at you all the time is very helpful.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough, especially when it can work to your advantage.
Mhm.
Just, and I mean,
Yeah.
just a slightly blurred line
Yeah.
of that ethical component. And it's easy to look away,
Right.
but it's
And
tough.
then you just fall right over onto the
know,
other side. Yeah.
Yeah, like, okay, I'm never going to make this kind of money that I'm making now in another position, but what do I do?
Mhm.
And I guess that's, you know, you kind of do the groundwork with yourself before graduation. And hopefully that'll translate to some good decisions in your life, even though they're hard as hell.
Yeah. Well, let's pivot now to the student questions and see what
Yes.
Ken, have you been keeping track of the student I've seen a lot coming in on the chat.
Yes, so hey Hilltoppers, it's time to submit if you haven't already. I do see 3 in the question and answer, and I see 1 in the participant. So are you ready, Sarah?
Yeah, of course.
So one of our first questions was, do you pay interns? And you answered that this year, no, and hopefully
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
that'll follow. That was 1. And then I'm going to read this one. This one's a compliment and a question. So Sarah, I'm tremendously humbled in hearing your story. Thank you for sharing your passion and heart with us tonight. Would you say, is your company code of ethics, and could you elaborate on the principles and values that have driven your mission with Zubiate? And I think we just went over that. So I hope Jennifer, Sarah answered your question just a minute ago. If not, please hit us again in the Q&A. But do you have anything to add to her question?
I don't think so. Oh, here it is. Okay, I'm sorry. I was looking at the chat. Hold on.
Oh, the
Q&A, yeah, the
Oh.
bottom.
Well, yes. So say as your company's code of ethics, could you elaborate on the principles that have driven your mission with Zubiate? Oh yeah. So one that I really didn't touch upon, and this is an excellent question, Jennifer, thank you for asking, is the balance that I wanted for a lot of mothers. I sold myself to professions because I'm a workaholic in many ways. And it's hard to know that about yourself, right? To know that it can lead to like an unhealthy family dynamic. And that was kind of another answer for me as Sarah to say, if I run my own company, I'm going to be even more of a workaholic, but I can then, at least when my kids are asleep, be present with my kids and then work when they're asleep. And it's like something like today, you know, I missed dinner. The whole family was doing dinner, but this is just so important to me. So I wanted to make it a world and an environment which is very, very understanding of parents. And for me, I have to say mother because I'm a mother, but you know, whatever kind of parent you are, it's hard. Just an understanding, ethical, love-abiding employer and management team is fundamental to our particular ethics, because life happens. Life is not always easy, but that's a part that I didn't really touch upon. And again, that goes back to knowing oneself, right? However you're built personally. And if you have a good boss, good leader, they'll help you understand who you are, maybe more than you already know. and probably guide you to be the best version of yourself if they can remind you, you know, that work-life balance is important and you need to take some time off. I can't tell you how many times I tell my poor executive assistant, you're not working this day. She'll just grind. But anyhow, so yes, that's something I wanted to add to that. Work-life balance is important, and it's tough to find a person or a company, a larger company especially, that's understanding of that, but it's okay. You can do it.
Great answer. And I do know that firsthand, the larger companies. Okay, we have an anonymous question. What are Zubi's sustainable values and what kind of CSR practices does Zubiate do now? And Professor Wilburn, if she's here, she'll love that CSR question for corporate social responsibility. So
yeah, oh yeah, it's huge. And that's an excellent question. So whenever I started my farm, I certainly wanted to have, you know, fair labor and wage practices, because farmers are totally taken advantage of, at least the people that help. So, I mean, right, the people who are working out in the Texas heat throughout the summer, things of that sort. But the farm itself is 100% sustainable. So off the farm, but still on the property, we have animals, cows, and these, I use the manure of the cows and any type of produce that is not used in my manufacturing process. It's literally then wheeled out to my farm, composted on the farm, and used in my soil. We never waste any food. I only package in glass. Anything that we ship with, it's 100% recyclable. My manufacturing facility is 100% solar powered. We use a drip system. So it's a drip irrigation system on the farm, which is a little bit more expensive up front, but it saves, I mean, the consumption of water is like 65% less than the competing farms. So as far as sustainability, ethics, helping reduce your footprint, just, you know, and I don't care what people want to believe one way or the other. It matters for one person to try and do their best with the resources that we all have. And again, not a debate at all, just trying to do what you can with whatever it is that your foundation is, right? I mean, for me, it's food, it's fair labor practices, it's a particular work-life balance. There's lots of sustainability that goes into sustainable mindset, which is what I'm constantly hammering down to my team. Sustainable mindset will always assist in bettering your sustainable missions and initiatives beyond that, right? To the food, because everything is organic in my crema and my queso and now my pecans that I'm launching in October. But it's just a chain of events that act from one small seed. So hopefully that, did I answer that question or did I not?
I think you did.
Okay.
And it's a great question because you're right, that mindset. And so the CSR mindset is huge. And
Everything, yes.
okay.
At least for starting a company, at least for me, I spent a lot of time on it, thinking about it and writing it out.
It's great that you started in the time period where CSR was, you know, so prevalent and the education is really getting out there.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so look, we'll move on to the next one. Given your background in fixed income, could you see yourself on the board of a financial services company, excuse me, if they had proper ethics? Was there ever an idea to start a financial services company of your own?
There was. So let me answer that first. So as far as a financial services company, yes, I had thought relatively briefly about starting my own. But again, it wasn't a sector or subsector of an industry that I loved, because there is so much manipulation on the computing side. The trading, a lot of the funds, I'm just talking mutual funds, exchange traded funds, they don't have access to the best pricing. So then at the consumer side, you're left selling your clients, as the business models are now, based on fees fee structures that are layered upon other fee structures. And I couldn't ever feel comfortable with that. And I tried to problem solve and figure out different ways to potentially introduce different modeling for these companies. After I said, okay, this everyone's set up to fail. I'm just talking the wealth management side. And there is a place and time where you should pay advisors or fund managers to manage the money. But what I tell everybody, I'm like, just put your money in an exchange traded fund. The market will normally outperform any type of mutual fund. Go do this class. Like there's so many basics available right now where, it's hard. But now, since I've had some decent success in this particular industry and prior roles, yes, as I get older, yes, because I would act more as a business consultant in the financial sector, because reading financial statements and sitting with someone for just 2 hours, I've learned people will pay a lot of money for that. And so in that capacity, yes. And I don't feel like I'm being greedy because I know how much I save them by sitting down with them for just like this much time. So that particular way, yes. But in the industry that I was in, no, I didn't want to do that, but I thought about it. The board question? Yes, absolutely. Right now, I don't have time for any type of board work, even on a paid director position. Isn't that sad? And that money would be amazing to have. Many of these independent director boards, like it's 6 figures. And for me to say no to that right now, because my company takes so much out of me and my family, my kids, I will not forgo that quality time. So yes, there will be a place and time, I'm sure, in my life, decades from now, where that might be the case again. But again, back to my fundamentals, I enjoy the quality time with my kids and my family too much.
Your boys are 8, I think you told us, you're twins, so.
I have a boy and a girl. Yes.
Okay.
So they're fraternal twins and they're 8. And then I have a blended family. And so my stepsons are 8 and 5. And the youngest has Down syndrome. Go figure. So it's been a crazy life.
Okay, moving on. What advice would you give 20-year-old self?
Spend some time getting more comfortable in your skin at that age. And what I mean is doing self-acceptance work, like digging into whatever will help. We all tell ourselves stories. Like when I said, whenever I came onto the St. Ed's campus, and the thing is, my life is so different now that when I think back to that Sarah, I think, oh my God, I used to think that these kids, these students came from so much, and they did at that point in comparison to myself. But I had so many stories about myself that I was telling myself, where I thought I felt less than, even though I never showed it. And had I done that work then to gain a level, or the level of self-acceptance that I have now, I guess that might just come with age, but I promise you, doing some self work there in some of these online courses available, it's amazing how that changes your mind when you accept yourself, accept your flaws, your strong suits. I work with a lot of people, I guess kind of in the consulting capacity, which I don't even do at this point, but when I do, they're the more introverted, quantitative people who want to start businesses and so I have to really help them overcome narratives that they tell themselves. And it's not too different from what, psychologists and psychiatrists do with people, I guess psychologists more, but that type of mental framework, even podcasts that I listen to, that it can all help the way that you approach and interact with your peers, your professors, people around you. So do that work right now. But I wouldn't really do anything differently. I enjoyed my time there. And I, was on 6th Street and all that good stuff just as much as I'm sure the next, maybe not as much as some of my friends, but So I wouldn't do that much differently. Just, I would do more work on self-acceptance.
That is a great answer. I took a note earlier when you were mentioning about how you don't meet strangers because you go and you meet them and they're not a stranger anymore. So that moment when they are a stranger and you're because you've done the work for your self-confidence, would you say to encourage people that that moment that you feel that you don't want to meet them and make them an acquaintance or a friend, it fades quickly, right? So once you go and you meet them and you open and question them, next thing you know, that confidence, and that self-acceptance that you talked about, wouldn't you say that it's so easy to move past that moment of doubt once you practice?
Most of the time. It's never 100% easy.
So I would say us seeing you now, we see you as an extrovert and very confident. So
that's who I am.
It's encouraging to us to say,
have narratives.
Yeah,
I still have
so encouraging when we have that doubt that we can lean on this experience tonight.
Totally.
Okay, well, let's move on. Okay, let's see. Did you apply for a job after your bachelor's, or did you go directly into starting a new business? And
I applied for jobs, definitely. Yeah, I started off with Fidelity.
Sorry about that. That's the intern time, right?
No, the intern time was when I was at St. Ed's.
Okay.
So that was my junior and my senior year at St. Ed's. And that was unpaid my junior and then paid my senior year for like nothing, but whatever I was paid, it was paid something, just very, very little. It wasn't a lot. But after that, I then applied to Fidelity Investments to kind of go through that rigorous kind of management leadership program that winds up at one of the trading desks, which I don't even know how I managed to do it, but I did it. And so I applied to that program but because I had that internship, I had some of the more seasoned members of the team, rip apart my resume. They ripped it up. It was redlined horribly. And so, so maybe that's why I got the job right out, out of undergrad, but yes.
Wonderful. Okay, let's see, moving on to what do you look for in interns? What skills are relevant?
An idea, I guess a clearly communicated idea of what someone's wanting to learn and oftentimes people will come to me and say, "Oh, I really like your company. I'd love to intern for you." Okay, why? What do you hope to learn? I want to learn more about marketing. Okay. So when someone can tell me, "Oh, I see that you've now started a campaign online and you're running some sponsored ads. I'm working on XYZ in this class on this type of conversion analytic statistic license," or whatever it might be in your class. And this is what I would like to learn in real time. And if you need help on the social media side, or, kind of like I even said, the food science folks from Cornell, they're actually the ones who are really, they know, because if they're studying food science, they know what they want to do, right? So they're like, we want more exposure to the R&D side, to the research and development side. The research and development side, we want to see how products are created, the to market strategy, and the ones I've had from SMU. Some have worked, some have not, but it's always that ability to tell me what they want to learn and how what they want to learn will help them further their life.
Great. Sherry has a question. Did you take a risk, and I think I know the answer, when you decided to remodel your company and build your own farm?
Yes. And I laughed because I wanted to kill myself. Not literally, but yes. It was so hard. I wasn't sleeping. And because I was having to run the facility at that point, run my manufacturing myself on the floor with my crew, chopping vegetables, after I crunched the numbers, made sure it was all FDA compliant, build all the Excel spreadsheets, make sure that my cost of goods for every single batch that we run was, had as little waste as possible, implementing all of these systems. Yes. Oh my God, yes. It was so risky because, you don't know what you don't know. And I knew only what the old co-packer that went belly up was doing wrong. But I very much saw what they did right. And so again, I made notation of everything that I saw that they did, that they didn't do. And I asked them for a lot of their legal documents, even though I didn't need them, but just to say, hey, I see that you don't let me to the back of your manufacturing facility. This co-packer does, this co-packer does. I can't find another co-packer that doesn't. Why do you let none of your customers to the back of your facility to observe your operations? So I said, can you please send me whatever part of the legal document that I don't have that claims that? So they finally let me to the back. And then from that, I again did my due diligence, but it was risky specifically because it's a lot of money, a lot of capital expenditure costs to buy the equipment for it. Risky in that I only have used pre-owned equipment in my facility, which is all awesome, but you have to make sure that it's all going to work in line with the other machines. So yes, every little thing required research and risk assessment, everything. But yes, it's awesome though.
Sounds like it was worth it. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, this is another great question from Alejandra. Do employers care if applicants were involved in school clubs, honors, etc., while working on their bachelor's?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And it says so much about it. 3 of my interns from SMU, they've all been sorority gals. And so whenever they came on, again, I was in Delta Sigma Pi fraternity, and I was never a sorority gal type of person. But I know that they're so good at things that I'm not as good at. So knowing, okay, they're doing this, but we share such common ground on volunteerism, on networking, right? On those human relationships. And it's not always the case, but a lot of times it is true. And yes, it tells you so much when you're reading someone's resume and you're like, oh, okay, food science major. Oh, okay. And they're in this club, Okay. So they're really trying to get more into institutional, like hospitality, but they still want to know how this could apply to the banquet serving division person. So, it's absolutely that paints your whole picture. I'm a classically trained singer and I've sang all over the world. And the thing is, when people see that as kind of something that I've done in my life, they're like, what? Really? But whenever you know that little bit about me, I'm sure it's probably okay. So then you kind of paint a different side of me that you otherwise might not have known. Yes. Don't ever stop that involvement. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. This one's from faculty. Now I'm going to butcher this, so I apologize. As a fellow, I guess it's Warrenese from Juarez, right? Warrenese and El Pasoan.
Yes.
Just want to say you're a wonderful source of pride for us. What an incredible journey you have forged. Wondering if you still make it back to El Paso once in a while, and what would you like to do when you visit? Is Zuby sold anywhere in El Paso?
Oh, do you see the tears in my eyes? Yes. My parents, they're very elderly and not in good health. So I am back and forth once a month at minimum. And when I'm back there, it's making sure that, the caregiver we've hired is taking them to their doctor's appointments and all that stuff. So it's not really glamorous, but whenever I go for longer than that and I take the twins, we'll still go to Cattleman's or, go to the west side of town and look at, kind of visit the old haunts that I used to go to while there, even drive over to Las Cruces. And yeah, I just like showing the kids things that I did growing up. Now, unfortunately, I haven't taken them to Juarez. My husband has been to Juarez with me, but the twins haven't. It's very different from when I was there. And I'm sure maybe when you were there, but it's very different. It was such an open border world for me, and come and go as you please. And, but I mean, the culture there, people are so down to earth. It's so different. I live in Highland Park now in the Dallas area, and it's so different. People are very kind and sweet, but El Paso is where my heart is. Absolutely. And I'm so proud to be an El Pasoan, and everyone that knows me knows that. But yeah, it's nice to have that question from you. So thank you. And oh, Zubies. Yes, the Costco. So it's there in Costco and in Whole Foods and on Amazon. So you can Amazon Prime it out to yourself or your family.
Oh, we got Madison Wells saying 915 for life.
Yes. It's strange, but when you're from there, it's like a true brotherhood. Really. I know it's kind of strange to say, but it's when you're from there, it's a different life. It's so cool.
And I'll chime in with eatzubi.com as well.
Yes, of course. Yes. And
Okay,
I run better specials. I run better sales on eatzubi.com. So
that's a great tip. Thank you for that. Because I could see people having Amazon up right now because they're doing other Amazon shopping. So
yeah, it's necessary.
okay, we got the last one in the chat box. As someone who is not the greatest with numbers, nor the most creative person, what do you see as a good way to improve those aspects, or how do you find those who do? So this person wants to improve their creative side of their number side. What would be the way to improve that?
I'm thinking here. So strangely enough, learn an instrument. I know that's very strange, but I truly mean it. If you can get yourself a keyboard or a guitar and work that side of your brain. It's very different, but my daughter's dyslexic. She takes piano. It's very hard for her, but she's good. She's good because she practices. She gets discouraged, but she practices. She likes how it sounds. So it's hard. It's hard. I'm telling you, when I tell you social media for me is hard. To pull up my social media and look at videos or whatever, unless it's someone that I know, it's very hard for me to connect with, all this whole huge world. It's overwhelming. That's what it is. It's overwhelming for me. And so, I've had to go just meet people who are better at it. And the reason I say that's one way to improve, right, is learning an instrument. It's very strange. There are different apps that you can download. Oh God, I'll look them up and I'll send them to, I guess, everyone on the email thread, right? So I'll send those apps over because you can actually just like do brain boosting numbers games on your phone. I mean, for 10 minutes a day while you're on the toilet. I mean, everyone, like, don't surf the web, like don't do social media then. Just sit there and just, go through one of those games, or set your alarm on your phone and don't let it turn off until you do some mental math equation. Seriously, there's an app for that too. And that is a great way to make sure that you're mentally alert in the morning, because your alarm's just going to continue going off until you just solve these 3 questions. And then from there, just start finding the resources that are all available. And to meet people who are better at it, extracurricular activities, for sure, without question, extracurricular activities, because some of the most profound employers in this world are people who are not excellent with numbers. Truly. I mean, I'm not talking Bill Gates or, you know, whatever. I'm talking like successful companies, just not quite at that level, right? Not the crazy level, but very successful, happy, comfortable lives. People who are extremely poor in these areas will make friends with people who are gifted in these capacities. And that's how, just the human element, taking it back to the human element and meeting people who you identify as having that and holding that as a strong suit. And then having a firm understanding of what it is that you bring to the table. Because I guarantee you, what you might not think is something that you bring to the table is something that you bring to the table. So writing that out and knowing the top 5 things that you're excellent at. And if you don't feel like you're excellent at anything, spend some time and get excellent at something.
Great encouragement. Thank you for that. It's amazing how our gifts can all come to the table together, and we don't always realize it.
Yes.
Another question from Alejandra. Thank you. Do you plan to expand your product to Mexico?
Not at this point. Tariffs are something that are tough. And so institutional business right now between US, Mexico, China, I mean, it's tough. Mexico's a lot friendlier than China in terms of doing business with them, but not right now, because there's so much land that I haven't covered in the United States yet. If I can't be good in my own backyard, I can't be good internationally. But down the road, yes, just not in the near future.
I wrote another one. That's our final question in the Q&A box. I have one for you. Where I'm at in my MBA is funding and staying private, things like that. Where are you at with that? Are you going to stay private?
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, to maintain my minority woman-owned status, I can't grow by raising too much money too fast, because every cent that comes into my account, if it's, I want to keep the majority ownership of my company right now, because that minority business women owned status is very important to me and to the doors that are being opened with that certification. So if I go out there and I get whatever it might be, $200,000, if that dilutes me too much, my ownership percentage down too much, then I might over time lose that certification if it's not from a minority owned person. So my investors, I have 4 minority people. There's 6, including myself. So 5 others. And yes, so it's a tough balance, because it's basically friends and family at this point with the whole 6 of us. And I don't want to have to expand past that. Down the road, would I invite in private equity or a VC? Maybe. I'll never be the one to say never, but then you kind of, you're beholden to the way that they run things. And as you all can tell, I kind of like running my things a certain way, as do most people. But if for whatever reason I needed to, at a point in the future, I'd consider it.
Wonderful. Well, that's all the questions we have, and I want to be mindful of everyone's time. Hilltoppers, great questions. Thanks everyone for joining. Dr. Single, do you have any other questions?
No, I just want to thank everyone for joining us on the webinar. I think, and I want to thank Sarah so much. It's been delightful chatting with you.
Thank you.
I think you've given our students a lot to think about. And I hope that sometime in the not too distant future, we can bring you to campus to do something like this again live.
This has been
Thank you very much.
wonderful. It's been wonderful and worth every moment of my time. So thank you for affording me and allowing me the opportunity to be here.
It's so great to meet you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ken. All right. I look forward to speaking with you all again in the future.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.